Hey guys, it's Kate Muldoon from Ladies with Tradies, working the trade and living the life. I'm very pumped today to have a mate that I made many moons ago when we were both on our personal development journeys, really, I'd call it, back a little while. I've got Nick Blair from Mind Health Bender. So Nick's going to tell us more about himself shortly, but I just wanted to give Nick a bit of a plug. Obviously, he's on our podcast, so of course I want to do that. Was very, very excited when Nick reached out a bit over a month ago, might have been longer, and was like, hey, you're doing some cool stuff. And I'm like, hey, shit, you're doing some cool stuff too. Let's talk. So really, Nick's a tradie, and he'll tell you more about that too, but really understands a lot about the people that we work with. And I feel really excited to be sharing his business and his story with you all. So welcome, Nick.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, beautiful. So tell us a bit about Mind Health Bender and who are you? Like, give us the story and the background.
Yeah, so Mind Health Bender is the platform that I built surrounding and helping people with their mental health, but it's really tied into the component of helping people cut back from recreational drugs and alcohol. So it's an early intervention platform, but it's not about abstinence, total abstinence, and total sobriety. And it's really playing in that grey area, to be honest with you, of helping people sort of discover what's conducive to them in their own goals for their own life. But people that know deep down that they're not ready to become completely sober and completely give up drinking and potentially even getting on the bags or whatever, but also want to become healthier people and just feel stuck. So it's more that early intervention angle rather than the deep like programs that are dealing with depression and addiction and things like that.
So it's that real, looking at that link between mental health, which we talk a lot about at Ladies with Tradies, and drug and alcohol use. What you talked about there is, not the complete abstinence. And I think, you and I have talked before about this stuff. It's a real challenge to find your own place in your alcohol and drug use for many people because, at times, like, I know this isn't great and I know it's impacting me at times, but I don't want to let it go or that type of thing. So, like, what made you decide to start playing in this, like you said, grey space? Like, what was the trigger?
Well, like you said, like I'm an electrician by trade and I've grown up in footy clubs. So I grew up in a culture of binge drinking, recreational drug and alcohol. But not only did I grow up in it, I led it. So like I ran the footy trips. I used to love it back in the day. And I was the master of talking people into doing these things and having big weekends and whatnot. And it wasn't until I was making a career change and I was getting out of being an electrician and I was studying. I did a diploma in positive psychology and a certificate in neuroscience and brain health. And I was actually coaching footy at this time. And I just saw how many people around us were struggling. And I was into the whole, I do all other weird sort of things like meditation on psychedelics and Reiki healing and all that sort of stuff, right? But everybody that is into that health journey and that healing are already into it. But I had a life where I was studying the formal side of it and I was practicing all different modalities. But I'm also entrenched in this world where just left being an electrician. I'm a footy coach. And it was like, I started off just purely about mental health. It had nothing to do with drugs and alcohol. But I'm like, all the guys that are here that are struggling really need the information that's over here, but they don't resonate with it. Like they're not going and dealing with hippies on the beach that are doing plant medicine and stuff like that. But they probably need the information the most. So I was like, how can I be the conduit to take my formal education and deliver mental health strategies to these guys? And like, what does it resonate with? And then I was just, I don't know, one day I was like, everyone resonates with having a bender, don't they? Like drinking, and whether you take drugs or not, like you still resonate with having a big night and a bender. And then that's how Mind Health Bender became that platform. And as I started getting out and going live and talking about it, just people were resonating with the drugs and alcohol conversation over and over. And the mental health stuff, yeah, some people would be interested in it, but it was when I spoke about drugs and alcohol that just I started getting messages every single day, and that just became the focus. It was like, all right, there's so many people out there, and having lived experience and seen it personally, and now dealing with hundreds of people through my channels, is that there are so many people out there, and this is just real life, isn't it, that are not ready to completely quit, but they're probably doing it way too much. And they're stuck in these psychological traps that are keeping them stuck in these loops and these habits that are so hard to break. And it's really starting to impact their mental health.
And so, is that what you see being some of the biggest challenges? Is it breaking habits? Like, what do you see men, particularly in the trade or trades industry, like, what do you see their greatest challenges are that leads them to either getting on the session too much, or like what's going on for them that's, I guess, the trigger, do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I think for everybody, and it's not just men either. Like I get thrown in the basket of men a lot because men sort of resonate with me because I talk
Yep.
about footy and trades and stuff like that. But I reckon 30% of the people that have come through my program have been women. So I think to answer your question is I'm very hard on the moment at not trying to put people in categories or baskets. So everything is very personal, everything is very individual. But the area that I play in and deal with a lot is that it is habits. It is these psychological triggers that are becoming hard and then life's becoming hard. So it's usually a combination of many things. And I get a lot of comments and messages, obviously, on my page. And for some people, they're just like, oh, it's addiction. But it's actually not for a lot of people. It's and to just throw it all in that basket and treat everyone like it is an addiction and it's either an all or nothing situation or a scenario, it actually misses a lot of people. And a lot of
Yeah,
people, if you don't see yourself, and for some people, to be honest, they're just using it as an excuse and they do have an addiction and they're trying to hold on to the fact that they don't. But for a lot of people, they're still running businesses, they're still playing sport, but they're stuck in these psychological habits of having gone out for the last 5, 10, in my case, 20 years of like drinking beers, getting a bag, and things like that. When you're stuck in these habits that you don't want to let go because you've got memories of how fun it was. So, like, as you grow older, it feels like if you stop doing it, that you're letting go of a fun side of yourself. So that can play a
yeah,
trigger. You might just not be content with work or even just the environment that we live in at the moment with all the wars and everything. Like we're just so bombarded with negativity that it's easy to just be like, fuck it. You know what? I want to go out and have fun and enjoy myself. I know that that's fun. So it's hard to sort of get out of that loop.
Hey legends, a quick pause in our podcast to tell you about something game changing. It's our 200,000K plus tradie business program. If your trades biz is hitting 200,000 to 750,000 in turnover, but it feels like you're going nowhere fast, you're not alone, but this program is exactly what you need. Join us for weekly no BS high impact after hours coaching with me, Kate Muldoon, founder and head coach, a packed 10 module self-paced course, a full toolbox of templates and resources, and access to our private Ladies with Tradies app and community. You also score a free business snapshot with me to zone in on what's working and, well, what's not. Let's face it, running a trades business shouldn't feel like putting out fires 24/7. We help you get rid of the chaos, get your time back, and make some actual coin. Ready to do trades business with confidence? Head to ladieswithtradies.com and check out the 200K plus tradie business program today. And I think that, so some of the content I've been really loving of yours, Nick, is around that, just little like tweaks in the habit overall. And my husband and I were actually talking about the calendar strategy that you came up with. And so, and we went through that activity ourselves just to be
Yeah,
like,
right.
well, how many days in the month are we having a drink, or and how comfortable are we with that number of crosses on the page that are the days that we've drunk, and how many do we want to get it back to? So I think the thing that I love about what you're doing is you're making it really easy and easy for people to make small change and sustained change without hitting them with the big stick. It's such a great balance. So tell me from your experience, what have you seen have been the benefits of that approach rather than the real hard line?
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter what modality, what approach anybody takes. The number one factor in any type of healing or making change to habits is you have to believe in it and you have to take action, don't you? So you could do years of talk therapy, or you might have one plant medicine journey and you get the same results, or, there's so many different things, or it might be a combination. First of all, the whole point of my platform is to resonate with people, because if I take somebody, there's so many great addiction coaches out there and they play their role. I believe there's so many different levels to it and everyone plays their role. But if you take somebody, for instance, I'll give you an example. I got abused by a big name psychologist who does hypnotization for addiction from the UK, like got a massive following. And they said, you're going to be the reason why somebody relapses because they see your content. And like, they're not idiots. I'm not saying go out and take it. I'm saying if you take it, cut back. But, their whole approach is like, full, don't touch it or whatever. Do you think a 19-year-old girl at Beyond the Valley is going to look at their content and say, oh, yeah, I better not touch it? Like, it just doesn't resonate. So the whole point, first and foremost, is just to resonate. And instead of saying to you, all right, let's hit this unachievable goal that's unachievable in your head and go sober and never touch it again, it's like, let's be self-aware. And how are you feeling? And when is it fun? And when is it becoming too much? So suddenly, like that calendar, that video that I said, in that example, I think I said, I wrote down on the calendar, like, you're getting on the bag 12 times a year. So once a month. It's like, okay, go through, pick out the things that you know deep down you're going to do it. Like if there's a massive festival or whatever, and tick those ones and say, all right, this is where realistically I'm going to do it. But then what are the times where you don't necessarily? And if you can mark off 50% of the times you do it, and then you use those big times as an excuse. So you're like, all right, well, I know I've got this festival coming up where I'm going to do it, so I don't need to do it this Friday night at the pub. And if you can wipe, like this approach, you can literally wipe 50% of your usage overnight. And when you start to do things like that, then you start to just become more self-aware of like, all right, what is the role that it's playing in my life? I even talk about what is it the role in that you're playing in a night? Like for so many of us, we grow up in that go hard or go home culture. And it's like, got to smash heaps of beers, got to the bags come out. And you're just doing lines and lines and lines. But when you actually slow down, and this was part of my journey at the start, was like just having less drinks and less drugs, I found that I was in a happier place and it was more enjoyable than actually smashing myself all night. And the come downs and the hangovers weren't as bad. So it's all about just being self-aware. And then once you get to a stage where, all right, you've taken those first few steps, then you can reassess and really just be mindful about what role it's playing in your life. And is it still too much, or are you comfortable there? And that will change over the course of your life as well.
I love it so much. I guess, I in my history, I did have a partner who was a concreter, and he actually died of a heroin overdose, which seems very extreme to a lot of people. But I think back to my experience with him, very functioning 6 day a week on the frigging concrete, for God's sake. Can you imagine? Still living with down that extreme end, not where we're talking with you. Like this is the hardcore addiction end. And I think even back to then, there was probably an element in him that was had some of these strategies for himself, whether he was aware of it or not. I think what I love about, and I called that harm minimization. We were like, how do we minimize the harm here to this person rather than trying to, because then they start to become secret and like do things, the behaviors change, and you lose the touch with the person if they don't trust you anymore. When what you're talking about here is like creating safety, I think, around minimizing the impact, like harm minimization. Again, that's very down the addiction end of it all. Where do you like sit in that space, like as far like what insights have you got? I suppose I'm really fascinated to hear from you. Obviously you have people coming into your inbox who are clearly having the negative impacts of getting on the sesh too much or drinking too much or whatever it may be, and they've got concerns for themselves. Yeah, just intrigued to hear what your thoughts are around that, like all of that as a kind of broader context, harm minimization, sobriety, like.
Yeah. Well, in that respect, it's pretty simple. It's a pretty
Yes,
simple
awesome.
equation for
Love
me.
that. That's what
Is
we want.
less is going to be more healthier and better. Like
Yeah,
there's no like I obviously talk about balance, but it's an
yeah,
arbitrary number, isn't it? I can't tell anybody what balance is for them. So for somebody
yeah,
that's been smashing bags every single weekend and drinking every single night. Balance for them might be going to having a bag once a month and, like maybe drinking once a week. And think about how much you're actually cutting out there. Like that's
yeah.
a massive number of the reduction. So I see it very simply. Don't try to complicate it or whatever, is that if you are doing these things and you cut back by whatever percentage it is, that's going to be better for you. So
Love
it's
it.
like, all right, that is and what I say is if you're going to choose to drink or you're going to choose to take drugs, is you're always taking a risk because
Mm,
there is no line that says, okay, if you take X amount of drugs, and if you don't go over, you won't fall into depression or you won't fall into addiction. And the same with alcohol. There's actually, you're playing Russian roulette every time you do it, but we all do it anyway, don't we? So it's like, all right, if you are going to do it, just try to reduce the amount of times that you do it. And you're going to have to be self aware in that line to be like, all right, it's still too much, or I feel comfortable now how often I'm doing it. And like I said, that will change over time. So yeah, for some people, it will get to a point where they just need to stop. Like
mm.
they probably get to the point where they think maybe they can keep doing it, and maybe it's not addiction, but it all comes back to that just shining a light on it and being self-aware. And I get people, yeah, I've got a team of a network of specialists around me. So I don't deal with addiction, but obviously I attract a lot of people that have fallen into addiction. So I get messages all the time that I refer to addiction coaches. But even then, I've had comments of people that have done my program and that watch my content that have said, this has helped me more than going into rehab because I just sort of resonated with the message. But then they became a bit self aware and realized, actually, yeah, it's probably getting too much. But
So
I think it's important for people to know that yeah, there might be a time where balance is nothing for you. You're
yeah,
not weak. You're not that's not a weak thing. Like if that is what it is for you, and you don't even have to approach it like it has to be like that for the rest of your life. It
yeah,
might be like just try it for 3 months, 6 months, and go for it. And then for other people, it might not be sustainable to try to go sober for 6 months. So I talk about just stepping down, like that calendar experiment. It's like, all right, well, at least if you're doing it less, then you're sort of stepping it down, it becomes easier, and you don't feel like a failure if you've tried to do this big block and then you've slipped up.
it's the extremes, isn't it? I think that when people any habit change, not just drugs and alcohol, it's like when you set yourself what I would say at times unrealistic goals. And we see this in business coaching, people will say, "Oh, I'm gonna do this within 6 months." And we go, "Okay, awesome. Let's break that down, doll. Let's break that down."
And I still do it to myself as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, 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 absolutely. Because you get motivated, you get that rush of blood, you're inspired to make the change, and so you're like, unreal, I'm just gonna set the world on fire and I'm gonna be this changed human. But we are human. And so I just love everything about your approach in how yeah, it's like any cut, it's simple. Any cutting back is good cutting back. So Nick, if I can just go back a step, you mentioned when it's getting too much, right? Now, everybody's got their own version of that. But what are some of the little taps on the shoulder that you've seen in people who have been in your programs or for yourself? Or can you just share a bit of what some of maybe getting towards too much has been for people that you've worked with?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first one is one, you're not enjoying it as much. Like
Okay.
you've got a night out or a weekend coming up, and the thing that's running through your head is, oh, I don't really want to go or whatever, and then you end up going, or then the next week you just come downs are harder,
And
the
your
hangovers
bits.
are harder, you're mentally bashing yourself. You find yourself even when you're not drinking. And the thing is, you might have some sober weekends, but you're still stuck in this negative loop and you're mentally just not going that well. So you might actually, and this is the thing that people need to be really aware of as well, is that you might do all the right things. You know what I mean? You might cut down from drugs and alcohol, you might do all the mindfulness strategies, and sometimes it still just doesn't work. And then people start bashing themselves mentally because they're like, oh, this doesn't work for me, or, I must be a fuck up or whatever, or I must be broken. Whereas sometimes it's just time and sometimes it's just trying different strategies to find, like for some people, they might need to do talk therapy for however long. Somebody else just might need to go to the gym. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of signs, but I think deep down, being self aware is the number one thing because when you start to feel like it's too much. Like, I don't think anyone out there is having a big night, smashing bags all night, and then being like, oh, didn't realize that was, you know what I mean? In the moment, when you're coming down, you're feeling that struggle and you're feeling it weeks after. But it can also play a big role in your mental health long after you've done it. So it's not like, oh, just because I had one sober weekend, I shouldn't be feeling like shit on a Wednesday. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you've been doing it habitually for a long time, you might need a good 3 months of not touching it before you start to feel the effects of it.
I think too that insight you're talking about, and I've done a few little experiments over the years. I did 14 months completely sober just as my own little experiment, not because I had any issue, but I was like, well, I'm going to live on the riverbank. That is a trap for just being on the piss most days because you're
Yeah.
sitting there, it's relaxing, everybody has a few beers on the river. I'm
Yeah.
like, I want to see if I can cope without that. And it was an incredible process to go through, but I never once felt like, some people feel like it's too much to go that extreme, and they're drinking for all different reasons. People drink for all different reasons. For me, I worked out just through doing that. It was the reason I drink was mostly just for the social element, not
Yeah.
necessarily because I was trying to be somebody that I'm not, like, or to become more confident or whatever it may be. So it's all these little bits of insight that you gather with just tiny little, I guess, experiments, for want of a better word, Nick, like with yourself to gain insight. Like, well, I don't know, it might not be the right word.
Yeah, no, I agree. But it's the biggest gripe, I guess, that I have with addiction coaches is that when we talk about extremes, and because they're in it every day, aren't they? They're seeing people with addiction every single day, they're dealing with it every single day. So you can understand how their views get warped. But they come out with, like some of them, not all of them, obviously, but you're drinking to heal trauma, or you're taking drugs to heal trauma, and you're trying to escape from reality and all this sort of stuff, which for a lot of people is not actually the case.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people are doing it because of the social bonding side of
Yep.
it, how fun it is, like fear of missing out. There's so many psychological factors. It's a part of your identity. When I go and talk in footy clubs and businesses, I talk about that on some level, drinking and taking drugs is part of your identity. And some people were like, oh, I don't know. But then I ask them, I say, so like, just picture we went out for a drink, right? And we went out with a couple of friends, and you didn't know my friend, but they came along and they said, oh, I'm paying for the drinks tonight. Like, it's all free drinks. And you didn't want to do it, but they're like, free drinks all night. And look, I've got a few bags. You can have a few free bumps. And if I interjected and said, oh, Kate wouldn't do it because she's like totally sober, there would be a part of you that, even if you didn't want to do it, that would feel the need to say, oh, I'm not doing it this weekend, but I do drink. You know what I mean? Because even though you don't know that person, you would care about what they think about. And I say, think about it. Most sober people, it's part of their identity because they can tell you how long it's been since they've had a drink. They will tell you, like, oh, no, I'm sober. So, yeah, being like either like a party girl that loves going to festivals, or one of the lads that loves having a beer after footy, on some level, it's part of your identity. And understanding that helps you understand how deep rooted it is psychologically to actually make you want to do these things. But the good thing about that is you can bring a level of compassion to yourself with that, because once you understand that, oh, you're not a fuck up because you got stuck into it again, or you found yourself on a Monday coming down. Instead, you can change that negative self-talk and reframe it and be like, actually, maybe it's because I've built these habits over 10 years. but at least now I'm doing something about it. And you can have a bit of compassion when you realize that if it's part of your identity, it's very deep rooted in your psyche. Like it's not just, you just because you didn't want to miss out. Like that's a very surface level thing to say.
Yeah, love it. This is so good. So I want to go into the what we talked about before we got on the socially acceptable alcohol kind of side of things, if we can, because you pulled me up before on something. I'm like, I'm going to come back to that. That's brilliant. And this is the right platform and the right audience, women and drinking. So I've been really confronted personally by people around me, and this is without judgment, who have challenges with the amount that they're drinking. And I guess the social acceptable level of having two, three, a whole bottle of wine at night, or that they're coping after having the kids all day, or that type of thing. What insights have you got, Nick, around or tips, I guess, for women particularly? These are very high functioning women that we work with at times in business or who are around us who, do they have the one or two or three glasses at night? Yeah, give us what do you see here out there? Like just to I guess wrap our arms around them and say, we see you too.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd be interested after this to get your insights in regards to what you see through your program, because you obviously deal with both, like, the
Yeah.
tradies and their
Yeah.
partners. But for me, there's no difference. There's
Mm.
no difference between men and women in regards to these psychological factors into things. I think one thing is like when you start to get older, is the women are the ones that have the babies, generally in a general sense. So maybe they're forced a little bit to sort of give it up or cut back a bit. But I think, yeah, whether I'm not even 100% sure on this, but is it socially more acceptable for guys to drink? I don't think so, because wine time and like,
Yeah.
from my experience that like women even drink more. So I think all the things that we've spoken about in regards to the psychological factors and triggers and all that sort of stuff, the pressure, like even just feeling of life, they're susceptible to as well. It's exactly the same. There's no difference. So, yeah, that's why I never really speak about men or women. I understand why I get taken that I deal with a lot of men mainly just because of the way that I talk and the language and stuff like that. But yeah, there's so, like I said, 30% I reckon would be women that have come through to me that resonate, because I think also it gets seen that women are more into the whole hippie vibe and yoga and things like that, where that's not actually the case. Like with a lot of the women that I deal with, they love going to festivals and smashing a bag, or, they love drinking, and they don't really resonate with all the hippie sort of modalities that are out there just as much as guys do. But yeah, for some reason, they probably get lumped in that class. So yeah, I get a lot of women that reach out to me that they're like, oh, we love your content because we resonate with it as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would put myself in there, because and a friend of mine, we were only saying 2 days ago, it's like, what's with all these woke women's circles that are coming around? Like, because it doesn't resonate with us. There's a place
Yeah.
for them, there's a time for them, but we're like, and we find ourselves getting stuck at times, like, where do we even fit? Because we're not the hippie right down that end version, and we're not full corporate, we're somewhere on the dichotomy, and that is 100%. I can agree with those women why I love your stuff, because it combines in the most beautiful, tactful, like easy to connect way, to worlds, I suppose.
What's your thoughts in regards to women? I think probably the one thing that maybe exists that doesn't for men is there might be a little bit more shame around it once they get into that point of being a mum, because suddenly they've got kids, and that doesn't mean their old life totally leaves them, and they still want to go out and have fun and maybe take drugs or whatever. Whereas I think it's easier for the guy, and this is obviously talking generally, but
Yeah.
if the guy's out working like a trade or whatever, doing long weeks, and then they've sort of got an excuse, like, oh, I just need to blow off steam, and they want to go out and get on the bag and drink or whatever. Whereas, like, the mum has done just as much hard work looking after the kids or whatever, but I think that's where it's maybe not as socially acceptable for a mum to be going out and getting on the bag on the weekend, with
Yeah. Well,
toddlers and stuff
I
like
think
that.
that the alcohol side of it is like we as a population, women are taking the excuse line the same as blokes have for a long, long time. Like I think it's now becoming that, and like, oh well, I've had a big week, so I'm gonna like pop a bottle. Like I think like blokes have been doing that for a very, 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 very long time. Like I've worked really hard, I deserve a beer kind of thing, like that reward system
Yeah,
that I'm seeing that become much more prevalent, that reward system in the I've had a big week or I've had a big day, so I'm gonna blow off some steam or have a like just have a relaxing wine, no worries. Or the celebratory element. Aussies are huge for that. We're really good at going, oh fuck, let's celebrate and have get the moe. I'm the first to get the bottle of Moe out to celebrate a big occasion.
yeah,
So I think, on the bags front, so different, like I am a 40-year-old woman and have only been exposed to that world in the last couple of years. And
yeah,
I was a bit of a wowser, really. Like I was a party girl right from 14 years of age, drank, but for whatever reason, never got on, the gear at all. So it's an interesting one. I guess it depends what you've been exposed to. But you're right, it's what is socially acceptable. Um, and the festival vibe or the pub vibe, it's everywhere now and so much more. Well, I wouldn't say socially accepted, but everybody's talking about it.
yeah.
Everybody's
Oh,
like,
Friday
just start
night,
getting
have a
on the
few
bag.
wines.
It's
It doesn't,
normal. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it
right.
doesn't
And
matter.
so that's been something for me that I reckon only in the last 2 to 3 years, honestly, Nick, that I would have gone, huh, that's the thing. But it's obviously been a lot longer than that. I wasn't in the footy scene though. So, I guess it's where you've been and what you've been exposed to. And also, I think you talked about shame before. So interesting, that whole concept. And we might have to do another podcast on that.
Yeah, I want to just bring up
Mm.
one point that you just touched on
Yeah.
around that, using it as like to switch off. That can
Yeah.
be one of the worst things because
Mm.
you might go and party and get on the bags and get ridiculously drunk or whatever, but that might be once every few weekends. But if you use alcohol or any type of recreational drugs like smoking or whatever, like smoking weed, as that shift from, okay, I've worked and now it's relaxation time, so I'll have a few wines or I'll have a few beers or I'll have a joint. You are teaching your brain that you can't relax and switch off
Yeah.
unless you have substances. And that can be the most dangerous thing because, again, it's a lot more acceptable if you're only having a few drinks after work and, you're not even getting drunk necessarily, but that is going to be a much harder habit to stop than partying once every few weekends, and it's going to do a lot more damage over time, but it becomes part of your habitual behavior that then you would really, I figure that people might think that it's okay and it's so much easier to justify, but I'm sure they would have a hell of a lot harder time trying to break that habit when they're older if it's always been a thing that, oh, it's time to relax, I'll have a few drinks, and then suddenly if they want to stop drinking, it's like, well, how do I relax? How do I regulate my emotions without needing the alcohol?
Yeah. The brain is so like the plasticity of the brain. It is the most fascinating thing, isn't it? How it
Yeah.
can just be so susceptible and so easily trained without consciousness.
Well, that's why you've probably noticed in my content, even though I've studied neuroscience, not that I'm a neuroscientist, but I studied under a famous neuroscientist and did a certificate in neuroscience of brain health. But I don't use those terms. I very rarely talk about dopamine because it is such buzzwords at the moment. And people have an idea of what it means. And sometimes it is good to get an understanding of what's going on in your brain. But a lot of people use it so wrong. It's well intended, but it's also not technically right of what they're saying as well. So it's trying to just simplify what is the actual actions you can do instead of talking about and what's actually going on in the actual brain.
Yeah, yeah. And that's again another thing I love about your content because from my experience with fellas, and what, I haven't been exposed as much to the ladies, where drinking becomes a conversation in business coaching. The boys, though, it's very rare to be for a fella, from my experience, again, just mine, whether that be in business or socially, to be able to sit there and ask questions to any level of like that relate to any level of consciousness about the behavior that's attached to drinking. They're like, I wouldn't have even thought about that for me. It's too far down that brain kind of slope, whereas what you talk to just freaking hits it like right at the right spot without complicating it. And that is so powerful, because I think there are too many people with all their fucking degrees getting all, you know, up and about the this and that and the other. That isn't going to connect to every demographic. And I think that's why I love your stuff, is it's just hitting at the right spot with the right language at the right level, with a level of intelligence and strategy that is just beautiful. So
Addiction, it's like the addiction conversation, isn't it? Like I go into footy clubs and trade businesses and I talk for about goes for about 45 minutes. But at the start, I say that we all know that it's not great for you, but so I could drown you in stats and figures and things like that. Like I could even tell you stories about funerals that I've been to of mates that just couldn't find another way, but I'd just bore you all to death. So the whole point of the talk is I say to them is to change your perception. So if I can change your perception about how you look at the role of drugs and alcohol play in your life, if I can change your perception about what you need to do to look after your mental health. And I talk about a few things that people can implement straight away for their mental health that they might not have thought about, is that they're far more likely to go and take action to do something that's conducive to their life
yeah,
than if I just talk about the facts and the stats and things like that.
yeah, beautiful, man. Absolutely awesome what you're doing. So on that, tell us a bit about what is it that your talks, how do people get in touch, or what can we do to soak you up?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, there's my platform, Mind Health Bender, on Instagram and TikTok and all the social media channels or whatever. But yeah, I go in. So the last few were actually sponsored by a gin company, Walkermore Gin. So I had the owner came onto my channel, and this is an interesting cross section of how do you, and this is the area that I play in, is like how do alcohol companies serve alcohol but still have a duty of care and help with mental health in the
Yep.
community, because they're supplying the product that can lead to, all these things like addiction. But it's my belief that you can find that balance. Like if
Yes.
for alcohol companies, it would
Yes.
just go underground. It's like drugs, isn't it? So yeah, so they were sponsoring the talk. So I've done a few for trade businesses and some footy clubs. But yeah, you can reach out to me and I come in. I've got a few different packages I do it's about a 45-minute talk, but that can be tailored. So for some companies, it's too hard to get all their guys back, if they're trades businesses at the same time. So I've done talks at 6:30 in the morning at the toolbox. Yeah, Friday afternoons, every now and then I'll do one and they throw in a barbie for everyone and we have a barbecue and a few beers. And it's funny because it goes to the same thing, is like we're doing a
Love it.
mental health talk, talking about drugs and alcohol, sitting
It
around
is.
having a few beers, because it's that balance and it's that real life,
Yeah.
approach.
And so you have people pop into your inbox. Like, are your programs just for businesses, or?
No, so I'm actually rebuilding it at the moment. Is I've got an accountability program for individuals where they can come in, they do like the bender, and which is like a weekend of, going at self-paced, but like there's messages back and forth from me. And then they implement the personal plan that they write up over the weekend. So they go through the content and write up a personal plan for them. So it's not just like, here, you go and do this. It's like go through and we put together a personal plan that they can implement over the next 12, 24, however many months they want to keep doing it. And then it comes with a bit of monthly accountability and monthly, like I drop new videos in there each month, but I'm about to relaunch that in a few months. So it's actually offline at the moment. So it's just all the content that I put out for free. And then, yeah, obviously I've got programs for footy clubs and for businesses
Yeah.
or
And
sporting
so
clubs.
that's online that week, the weekend a bender, or like when that comes back online, is it online the whole weekend or do you
Yeah,
do it in
yep,
person?
online,
Perfect.
yep.
I love that. So accessible. Bit like us, everything's online. Amazing. So we will put all of your info into the notes for everybody to access so they can hit you up or, follow along and watch your content. From my personal perspective, I just want to say a huge thanks because it's really actually opened some great conversations, even in my house with Jace. And, we're really successful human beings, but we're always wanting to do a little bit better for each other all the time. And
Yeah,
your content's been a big part of that for
yeah, I
our
love that.
relationship. So thank you. I do want to say thanks because it's hard for me to get stuff through to Jace at times, and your stuff just hit him. Like I feel emotional thinking about it. So I have
Nice.
a lot of gratitude to you. Not that we have any problems, but it's just so great to be wanting more for yourself, just a little bit without the extremes. So again, I've got a lot of gratitude and appreciation for you. So
And thanks for having me on. And it's the best thing about these forum, isn't it? That, like I've got a sign in my room that in my office that just says one person every day. Like because you can start to get sucked in with the numbers. You have videos that hit 2 million views and
it's all just
30,000
vanity, isn't it?
shares and
Yeah,
stuff like that. And you start to get driven a little bit by that. But I was like, do you know what? What am I actually, if I impact one person every single day, that will be that it's worth it. But there's so many people that you'll impact when you do platforms like this that you'll never know. You'll
yeah.
never know how many people get impacted by it. So, yeah, thanks for having me on.
Beautiful, Nick. Thanks so much. So, yeah, really grateful for your time, man. Everybody hit up Mind Health Bender on all the socials. Honestly, it's very joyful content alongside educational. Awesome, awesome content. And yeah, the programs sound absolutely brilliant too. So, thanks again, Nick. I reckon we'll get you back on in a little while if that will work for you, because it's a
Absolutely.
great topic. And yeah, I've really enjoyed chatting. So, great to catch up, mate. Thanks a lot.
No worries. Thanks.